Welcome to my channel. This is Mr. Black Knight Scary. I'm so glad you found me. I want you guys to please make sure to leave a like on the video, as it helps my channel grow and reach more viewers. Enjoy the fresh content and please subscribe now. And remember to click that notification bell so you don't miss a story in the future. I understand that there are thousands of channels just like mine that you could have chosen to listen to. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for choosing mine. I truly appreciate your time. To have your story featured on an upcoming video, email the link in the description box below. Thank you all for listening. Sit back, relax, and enjoy these truly terrifying blizzard horror stories. Story number 1. The year 2022 had been a dumpster fire, culminating in a breakup that left me hollowed out and questioning everything. Christmas, usually a time of warmth and family, felt like a cruel joke, so I escaped. I rented a small remote cabin nestled in the wild fringes of Denver, Colorado. My plan was simple: solitude, snow, and a desperate attempt to recharge my shattered spirit. The cabin was perfect for my purpose, or so I thought. Small, unassuming, with timbers that groaned in the wind, and an ancient creaky wooden door that looked like it belonged on a haunted movie set. Its isolation was its primary appeal. No neighbors for miles, just the vast, silent wilderness. I arrived on December 23rd, the air already thick with the promise of snow. By late afternoon, delicate flakes began to drift, a soft ethereal curtain descending from the charcoal sky. The weather forecast had been grim. A blizzard was inbound, set to dump 20 inches of snow in 24 hours, blanketing the Rockies in an impenetrable whiteout. I welcomed it. The more cut off I was, the better. As dusk bled into premature night, the storm ramped up. The wind howled like a banshee, rattling the cabin's old windows. The snow wasn't just falling anymore. It was a furious, swirling vortex, erasing the world beyond my frosty panes. It was truly blizzard whiteout conditions. I fixed myself a simple dinner, the only sound the protesting timbers and the relentless roar of the wind. Around 9 o'clock, I stepped onto a small open deck to take in the savage beauty of the storm. The cold bit at my exposed skin, fierce and immediate. The air was a maelstrom of white, blurring the lines between ground and sky. It was mesmerizing, terrifying, and exactly what I thought I needed. As I turned to go back inside, a flicker of movement caught my eye. A shadow, impossibly dark against the blinding white, darting past the edge of the deck, swallowed instantly by the swirling snow. My breath hitched, my heart hammered. No, I told myself, shaking my head. That must be my mind playing tricks. The snow, the wind, the shadows, it's just all playing on your nerves. You're alone. I slammed the old wooden door shut, bolting it with a heavy, rusty latch that seemed woefully inadequate. I tried to read, tried to distract myself, but the image of that fleeting shadow clung to the edges of my vision. Eventually, exhaustion won. I climbed into bed around 11, the roar of the blizzard a strange, hypnotic lullaby. Sleep came fitfully, punctuated by the cabin's groans and the shriek of the wind. Then, the sudden jarring shock of awakening. It wasn't the storm that woke me. It was an unnatural silence in the air, a stillness that pressed down heavy and suffocating. My eyes snapped open. The room was dark, save for the faint glow of snow filtering through the window, painting the edges of the furniture in ghostly silver. And then I saw them. 2 figures standing over my bed. My blood ran cold, my breath hitched in my throat, a choked sob that never escaped. The men were tall, silhouettes against the faint light, but the details were terrifyingly clear. Ski masks covering their faces completely, leaving only dark, vacant holes for eyes. One was slightly taller, broader. The other, slighter, held something in his hand, something dark and bright. A cold, unyielding pressure suddenly pressed against my temple. The unmistakable chill of metal. A gun. Money. Phone. The voice was low, gravelly, distorted by the mask. He spoke not in a whisper, but a command devoid of emotion. My entire body locked up, a primal terror seizing me. I couldn't speak, couldn't move. I felt the slow, steady press of the gun barrel against my skin, cold and real. The other figure moved, a blur of motion, grabbing the meager wallet from my bedside table, then snatching my phone from where it was charging. I could only stare up at them, my eyes wide and pleading, tears forming but too terrified to fall. This wasn't bad luck, and this wasn't random. The shadow, the way they moved, as they turned to leave, the taller man paused, his masked face slightly tilting. The raw, guttural voice cut through the air, colder than the blizzard outside, more chilling than the gun against my head. "This is for Sharon." The world tilted. Sharon, my ex? The name hung in the air, heavy with unspoken malice and a sickening sense of dread. My breakup, my escape, my attempt to heal, it was all a lie. She was involved. Before I could even process the words, before the implications could fully bloom into my horrifying realization, the other man swung. A blinding flash of pain erupted in my head as the butt of his gun connected with sickening force. The room spun. Stars exploded behind my eyes, then everything went black. The last thing I felt was the stinging cold on my temple, the throbbing agony in my skull, and the crushing weight of utter absolute terror. The blizzard howled on, a fitting soundtrack to a nightmare that had just become terrifyingly, personally real. My sanctuary was gone, my solitude violated, and the snow outside, 20 inches deep, felt less like a protective blanket and more like a cruel, inescapable tomb. Story number 2. My brother Mark and I were cut from the same cloth. 30, 32, and a deep primal love for the hunt that ran in our blood. It wasn't just about the deer. It was about the cold quiet of the deep woods. The challenge. The absolute immersion in something ancient. We had been hunting together since we were old enough to hold a BB gun, and by 2021, we were seasoned veterans. That year, we planned our big hunt deep in 𝐾𝐨 Mountains, a place where the trees grew in so thick they swallowed the sun even on a clear day. We set up camp 2 days in, away from any semblance of a trail, surrounded by towering pines and the crisp scent of pine needles and damp earth. We knew the forecast called for snow, but nothing that our cold weather gear couldn't handle. We were wrong. I woke with a start, not from my alarm, but an oppressive silence that crushed against my ears. I woke with a start, not to my alarm, but to an oppressive silence that crushed against my ears. The air inside our tent was frigid, biting at my nose. I fumbled for my phone, the screen glowing 4:47 a.m., and then nudged Mark awake. "Snowed in," I rasped, my breath pluming. He grunted, already stirring. Pushing aside the tent flap, we were greeted by a world transformed. 12 inches of fresh, untouched powder blanketed everything, muffling the forest into an eerie, alien landscape. More was still falling, thick white flakes swirling down from a bruised charcoal sky. We exchanged a look. This was more than a little snow, but we had planned for this trip for months. We were packed to the gills, our cold weather gear designed for Arctic expeditions. We'd be fine. We had to be. At 5 a.m. sharp, we geared up. Each step crunched through the fresh snow, a sound that felt deafening in the otherwise absolute silence. Our breath plumed in front of us like twin ghosts. The blizzard was intensifying, the wind picking up, whipping snow into near whiteout conditions. It took us twice as long to reach our respective stands, a quarter-mile apart, but we finally made it. I hoisted myself up into my perch, the metal of the stand icy against my gloved hands. My rifle clicked into place beside me. This was it. I was settled for perhaps 15 minutes. The snow falling so heavy and fast it felt like a curtain of white noise. My world shrank to a small, shivering circle of visibility. My fingers were already stiff, despite the heavy gloves. That's when I saw them. Shadows. Not deer, not elk. Nothing I recognized. The shadows moved through the swirling white like oil and water. Slow, deliberate, uncanny. They were too tall, too slender to be any animal I knew. They seemed to glide rather than walk, and as the snow momentarily thinned, I caught a glimpse of outlines that were more human than animal, elongated and bent, disappearing as quickly as they had appeared. A cold dread sharper than the biting wind began to prickle at my scalp. Then Mark's voice crackled through my walkie-talkie, a strained whisper that cut through the blizzard's roar.
Brad, are you there? Yeah, I'm here. What's up?
I tried to keep my voice steady, but the tremor was unmistakable.
Brad, there are three figures.
His voice hitched.
Dressed in black hoods and robes. They're slowly surrounding my stand.
His words were laced with a raw terror I'd never heard from him.
It took me so long to finally make them out because of the blizzard. I thought I was seeing things. God, Brad, they're just standing there watching me.
My blood ran cold. 3 figures? I'd seen shadows, maybe more. My mind raced trying to make sense of it. What the hell was he talking about? Who would be out here like this? Before I could even formulate a question, before I could tell him to just shoot, to get down, to run, the world tilted. One moment I was rigid in my tree stand. The next I was plummeting. The icy branches whipped past my face. A sickening crunch echoed, and then the jarring, breath-stealing impact as I hit the forest floor, 20 feet below. The air exploded from my lungs, pain searing through my leg and back. My rifle miraculously was somehow still within arm's reach, snagged by the sling. I lay there dazed, gasping for air, the snow a cold, wet cushion beneath me. My vision swam, but through the swirling white, 4 dark shapes coalesced. 4 black-robed figures now standing over me, their hoods pulled low, faces entirely obscured by shadow in the falling snow. They made no sound, no movement beyond their silent, looming presence. They were just there. Terror, primal and absolute, roared through me. Instinct took over. My hand closed around the cold metal of my rifle. I brought it up, barely aiming, and squeezed the trigger. The shot ripped through the unnerving silence, a deafening crack in the blizzard. One of the figures staggered back, a dark stain blossoming on its chest, and then collapsed into the snow. The remaining 3 didn't hesitate. They vanished, melting back into the swirling white, as silently and swiftly as they had appeared. Before I could even try to push myself up, before the ringing in my ears had faded, the forest was silent, chillingly silent. The blizzard continued to rage on, but the wind seemed to die. The falling snow seemed to mute itself. It was an unnatural quiet, heavy and suffocating, as if the entire world has held its breath.
Mark,
I choked out, fumbling for my walkie-talkie.
Mark, are you there? Mark!
Nothing. Just the oppressive silence. I pressed the transmit button again, my thumb trembling.
Mark, respond, Mark!
Static. Then nothing. Silence. My legs screamed in protest as I tried to stand, but I forced myself. Every muscle ached, every breath was agony. But Mark, where was Mark? I didn't care about the pain. I stumbled through the deepening snow, calling his name, my voice raw and desperate. The sound devoured by the suffocating quiet. I searched blindly at first, then systematically, circling the area where his stand should have been, then widening my search. The blizzard raged on for hours, distorting everything, twisting the familiar trees into monstrous shapes. I found no tracks, no blood, no sign of a struggle, nothing. Just unbroken, pristine snow. I found his stand, still upright, empty. He was gone, as completely as if he had simply dissolved into the storm. I never saw my brother again. The authorities, when I finally staggered out of the woods 3 days later, frostbitten and half mad, had no answers. They called it exposure, or perhaps a fall into a ravine I couldn't find. But I knew. I know what I saw. I know what Mark whispered to me. And I know the terrifying, all-encompassing silence that claimed him. The woods took my brother. Not the cold, not the snow, but something else. Something cloaked in black. Something that still haunts my waking hours, forever lurking in the silent, swirling white of that terrifying snow. Story number 3. The blizzard hit us harder and faster than any forecast had predicted. We'd rented a secluded Airbnb for a winter escape in 2024, a charming little place my wife and I had found online. Getting there had been an adventure in itself. Nearly 4 miles of bone-jarring gravel road that snaked through snow-dusted pines, houses appearing at half-mile intervals like lonely sentinels. Out here, miles from anything, a knock at the door after dark was an anomaly, an impossibility. An hour after the first flakes began to dance, the sky unleashed its fury. The wind howled, reshaping the landscape into a swirling white void. Inside, the cabin's warmth was a welcome contrast to the tempest outside. We were settling in for the night, the crackling fire a comforting soundtrack to the storm, when the sound cut through the wind's roar. A weak, hesitant knock at the front door. 10:30 p.m., no one should be out here. Common sense, or perhaps a misplaced sense of mountain town courtesy, dictated that we open the door.
There might be someone who needs shelter,
I reasoned to my wife, even as a prickle of unease crawled up my spine. I eased the door open, the wind snatching it, revealing a figure silhouetted against the swirling snow. An older man, his face etched with cold, stood there shivering. His voice was raspy when he asked to come in, and he told us his car, he claimed, had died about a mile back on the gravel road. We invited him in, a decision I'd come to deeply regret. My wife, ever hospitable, began preparing a simple dinner for the 3 of us. But the atmosphere in the cabin shifted, becoming thick and suffocating. The man's eyes, an unsettling shade of pale blue, lingered on my wife with an intensity that felt predatory, making my skin crawl. Every glance, every word felt laced with a sinister undertone I couldn't quite articulate, but could certainly feel. I excused myself to use the bathroom, a brief respite from the suffocating tension. That's when it happened. A strangled scream tore through the silent cabin, a sound that froze my blood. I burst back into the living room area to a scene that would forever be seared in my memory. The man, no longer a shivering victim, had my wife by the throat, a glint of metal in his hand, a knife. His eyes, wild and maniac, met mine.
The car keys,
He rasped, his grip tightening.
or she dies.
My heart hammered against my ribs, a desperate drumbeat against the chilling silence that followed his demand. I slowly, deliberately walked towards him, my gaze locked on, trying to protect an outward calm I didn't feel. My hand, unseen by him, moved with a practiced stealth, my fingers finding the familiar, cool shape of the compact Glock I carried. In a fraction of a second it took for him to register the movement. I closed the distance. Before he could react, before he could fully comprehend the shift in power, I pressed the barrel of my pistol to his shoulder and fired. He dropped like a sack of grain, a guttural groan escaping his lips. My wife's scream, raw and terrified, echoed through the cabin. In that moment, the blizzard's fury seemed to pale in comparison to the storm that had just erupted within our sanctuary. People are strange, unpredictable, capable of unimaginable darkness. But in situations like these, hesitation is a luxury you cannot afford. I wasn't going to wait to see what came next.